Hey everyone, welcome back to the range. My name is Matt, also known as the King of Armor Destruction, the Armor Wizard. Zap. We have a body armor demo today. This one hails from the mainland China, Militech. This is their new RF2 offering for the upcoming, actually I should stop saying upcoming because it's finally approved, NIJ 07 standard, where effectively our level 3 threat, which used to be M80 ball, 6 shots at 2780 feet per second, has been split off into what's known as RF1 and RF2, and it actually adds our 7.62 by 3.9 mild steel core, as well as M193 5.56 and M855 5.56. Let's take a look at these guys and see what we got to do today. To be as upfront as possible, Militech sent me a giant box of various plates of theirs to demo with no strings attached. Not only do we have some RF2s to mess with, they sent us some RF3 level 4s for us to leave outside like we did with a previous test to see how they hold up after 3 years. This particular 10 by 12 plate weighs 4 pounds, 5.4 ounces or 2.42 kilograms. This one was 4 pounds, 5 ounces in the dot or 2.4 kilograms. Both measured approximately 1.054 inches or 26.74 millimeters. It is multi-curve. You can see all those nice sexy curves there, and they help fit your body very, very well compared to a single curve or no curve plate. I don't know anybody that's got no curve plates. You really shouldn't be using those in 2024. Now, if this is the first time you're coming across my channel, because I'm not as well known as some of the other larger channels, I'm here to give you guys information versus entertainment. So I do all my body armor demos completely different than everyone else on YouTube. I'm after worst case scenario. Since this is rifle armor, we shoot at 45 feet. We also shoot at 0 degrees again, because worst case scenario, any angles only adds the amount of material that bullet has to penetrate. Since this employs a ceramic strike face per the NIJ, we've gone ahead and dropped each plate on its face 2 times as a preconditioning test. After we've done that, we mark each plate with a DT indicating that we've done the drop test, and if we do any more than 2, we mark that in parentheses. And we apply a torque test to the plate, meaning that we grab the opposing edges and apply force and listen for any cracks. If we don't hear any, we mark it with a TQ. This is a silicon carbide tile array plate, meaning that there's a little bunch of little hexagon tiles that make up this strike face. Generally speaking, those don't show any signs of cracking, or at least I can't hear any. And this one does have drop face foam on it, so that helps protect the strike face. This particular 10 by 12 plate, from what I can tell, uses a complete edge-to-edge strike face, meaning that all the way out here to the edge of this measurement is our ceramic. In the last test that we did of their aluminum plate, they were very close to the edge, but some companies will sell you a lighter plate because they have a foam ring that usually starts right here where you can see this dent or indent right here, and that is non-ballistic rated for the threats. You know, there's the polyethylene behind it, which would stop some threats, but it doesn't have ceramic out there. We also use a giant clay briefcase filled with Roma Plastilina #1 clay from Chavant that acts as our compressible media to solidly put the plate up against, and we can get a general idea of backface. It's the same clay that the NIJ uses, but they get to shoot out of a lab, you know, an inside enclosure. We're out here in the woods. It's around 75 to 80 degrees outside today, so I can't control the temperature. So we're looking at a representation of what backface could be. If we see something like 60 millimeters in our clay with a 5.56 shot on this threat in the NIJ's testing, that would probably be failing. We use a chronograph whenever possible because we need to know the velocity of that bullet, so that way if we say this will stop M193, we can qualify at what velocity it will stop it at, because there are various different barrel lengths that you can shoot these rounds out of. And if we shoot something out of a 10.5-inch barrel and it kind of looks like it went through, if someone were to engage someone in the real world with a longer barrel length, that would be a bad situation. So we were after worst case scenario. So that's typically why we use these super long barrel lengths and go after very warm velocities, so that we know at range and shorter barrel lengths in the real world that those threats will be stopped. We also put a spreadsheet here at the beginning that we kind of foreshadow all the threats that we're going to shoot at it. We fill them out with our penetrations and our velocities as long as our chronograph is behaving. And in the end, we do a tear down, and that's where I'm getting ahead of myself. That's where we tear the plates down and kind of confirm all the specs that the manufacturer has presented to us up front. I do want to remind everyone that I'm not an NIJ lab, so if you see a threat stopped or penetrated over here and you have any questions, you should always defer to the manufacturer to produce accredited and recent lab results for their plates. And on the flip side, if you're the manufacturer and you see me stop M855A1 going 3,500 feet per second, you should send it off to a lab and have that added as a special rifle threat to your panel. Plate number 1 is strapped in and ready to go. Since this is an RF2 plate, it has to handle our M80 ball. The spec velocity is like 2780 feet per second, plus or minus 30. We're gonna go a little above and beyond. This is a 24-inch Savage 110 Tactical. We've got the Yankee Hill Phantom M2 up front. We have our Garmin Zero C1 running in tandem with our light screen chronograph, just so we have those 2 different data points for velocity. So if one looks a little bit off, then we have a second data point. Deacon will be taking a shot. This is Winchester Lake City Surplus M80 ball with a bimetal jacket. It does attract a magnet. Velocity 2982. The Garmin read 2980. Easy enough. Shot number 1, 2, and 3. Those were well above specifications. Place those bets in the comments below. That one in the top corner doesn't look too healthy. Helper hand. No pass-throughs, folks. Now, the dimpling on there is pretty excessive, and it looks like we've started to pull the polyethylene away from this plate, but it stopped those rounds. As far as back face, these are definitely something that would be considered failing. I mean, it's hard to even measure that. That one's about 51 millimeters. Now this one in the middle though, 16 millimeters. This guy over here is bad. But in all fairness, the NIJ won't shoot that close to the edge. I mean, 2 inches is right there. We were well inside that edge perimeter. Not too shabby. Now, the other part is the plate strike face is still fairly solid, so we'll see what we can do with some 5.56 on this. We'll step down in caliber a little bit. We've got our 5.45 by 39. This is our 7N6M for modernized. I keep saying it wrong pretty much every video and I cut it out. Modernized, not modified. It's a 52 grain full metal jacket with a hardened steel penetrating core. The original 7N6 was a B scale hardness. This is C scale. This was donated by my buddy Andy Morris. We've got our SSG 82 and Deacon's gonna fire 2 rounds at the lower left hand corner of this plate. Now this is where the plate should shine. When we tested the alumina version, we put something like 27 hits of M855A1 on it and there were no pass-throughs. So we brought out our 22-inch TC compass, so maximum real-world velocity in 5.56. We did bring out the 22 Creedmoor today, but we've got our M193, that's our 55 grain full metal jacket. We've got our M855, that's the 62 grain lead core conical steel penetrating current issue NATO round. Then we have M855A1, that is the U.S. Army's current issue ball round all the way down to basic. Has a copper core, large hardened arrowhead steel penetrating tip. We just did the ballistic review on that round. I'll put a link down there in the description below if you want to check that out. Pretty awesome results. 34.47 on my guy. 32.21, ooh, nice and hot. 32.65. Right there. A lot of carnage on here. M193 shots number 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then our M855 shots number 1, 2, 3, and then 4. Like I said, we're getting pretty close to the edge there. Our 7N6M shots number 1 and 2. That one was on the edge. Then our A1 shots number 1, 2, 3, and then 4. Helper hand. Place those bets in the comments below. Uh-oh, Raggy. Looks like we had a penetration
from the 7N6M that was on the edge, as well as those two shots. Shots number 3 and 4 of the A1. Maybe we'll get out the fresh plate to verify that. Again, the plate is taking more shots than it was designed to take in theory with the new NIJ RF1 and 2. It is actually reduced to 3 shots per plate, I think in a varying shot pattern versus the 6 of M80 ball that it used to be. But very impressive. We stopped all of our M193 and M855 at edge shots. Cool. We have to print a slight retraction. It looks like all 4 of our rounds of M855A1 penetrated. We've got this guy here, 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 and here. Now this one is not a, these 2 could not be considered a fair hit, because if we flip the plate over, you can see we literally stacked those too close to our 7N6M shots. That one I would consider a fair hit. So I think maybe on the second plate, we'll shoot a couple of M855A1s on the extreme edges just as a validation.
Plate number 2 is strapped in and ready to go. I want to shoot some more M855A1 at it, but first I want to see how it can handle a little more advanced 30 caliber threat. We've got the 22-inch TC compass. Unfortunately, this is the shortest barrel length 308 that I brought with me, but we've got our M80A1, U.S. Army's current issue ball round. I'm not sure what the distribution's like and what guns they actually shoot it out of, but this is the EPR version of M855A1, button 7.62 NATO, 130 grains, same copper core, larger, harder steel penetrating arrowhead tip. Now this one's not as hard as M855A1. This is like 49 to 50 RHC versus the M855A1, which was 59 to 60. 29.65, 30.96 off the Garmin here. We're back to our M855A1. We brought out the 22-inch TC compass again.
All right, these are easy enough. Our M80A1 shots number 1 and 2, then our M855A1 shots number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I think I've left some good spots on this plate depending on what we see. Place those bets in the comments below. R.A.N.G.E. We had a penetration from both shots of our M80A1, likely too fast for that plate, and from this shot of the M855A1. The other shots look to have been stopped. We will confirm during the teardown. That is 2 inches from the edge there, but that could just be a weak area. Hard to say, but the other ones were stopped. Not too shabby. I don't think we should do 22 Creedmoor with M855A1, but maybe we do it with the M193. As far as our back face goes, I would say this shot of M855A1 is a good representation of what to expect. Right around 32 millimeters. And then this one over here, 36 millimeters. So not too shabby for a 5.56 threat on this particular plate. Could be a little better, but for under 5 pounds, doing fairly well.
I did remember that I brought out my 300 blackout, and this will give us a little bit of simulated range for our 30 caliber threats. Grand Thumb did a video on how deadly is 300 blackout, and I would say it's pretty darn deadly when you load it with some of the rounds that I do. I've got our M80A1 here, as well as our M2 armor piercing, and in the past these have wrecked RF2 plates where M855A1 has stopped, and the velocity is a lot lower, mainly because there's a lot more hardened material to deal with. We've got a 10.5-inch PSA build, 2072. Our final challenger for today is our Super Speed Maximum Overdrive 22 caliber. This is our 22 Creedmoor. This is from KAK Industries. It's an 18-inch upper, very nicely built. I need to do the review on it. But so far I've been working on making some loads for it. I really haven't done too much for accuracy on it yet. But we've got 3 military loadings here. We've got our SS-190, that is our 31 grain full metal jacket AP and 5.7. We've got M855, again the 62 grain with the lead core and conical steel penetrator. And we have just M193. 4324, 3791.
At some point it looks like I'm going to have to replace the backing on my new clay briefcase, but our SS-190 shot was right there. Our M193 shot was right there. That M855 shot, I don't know why that was so low. I may need to check the offsets on my scope. Our M2 AP was right there. Then the M80A1 from the 300 Blackout was right there. Place those bets in the comments below. Oh, R.A.N.G.E. We have a penetration from the M2 AP, but our M80A1 was stopped when we tested it in the past against the alumina version. It actually penetrated. We stopped our Super Speed 22 Creedmoor as well.
Paging Dr. Matt to surgery. Paging Dr. Matt to surgery. Now for a fan favorite, the teardown. That's where we get to confirm any penetrations and we look at the guts of our plates to the best of our ability. I've said it before and I'll say it again, the harder it is for me to tear the plate apart, the better it usually is constructed. Here is our outer covering, Cordura nylon type fabric. I like that Militech is adding a foam ring on the outside edge. This is not the reduced strike face foam that we talk about, but this is to protect the edge against any strikes. Very, very good there. Here is the back of our plate. They have a very low density, low thickness foam that they're using on here to help control back face. Not sure how viable it is because it's not very high density. I'd rather see more polyethylene in its place. I mean, it's only 0.20 inches thick. Here is our polyethylene. It appears to be pressed 660 thousandths thick. It did start to come apart rather easily, but I can't thumb through it like a book, and it has retained most of its shape. Not too shabby. Here is our strike face. There are all of our silicon carbide tiles. We have pretty much almost a complete edge-to-edge strike face on this. That's a big improvement. There's just a little bit you can see right there that it doesn't reach, and I think the worst offender is right here on that leading edge. But otherwise, all those tiles are nicely packed together, and they're still on the plate. You can see almost each individual shot. You know, this shot right here didn't destroy this tile here. And we're using good adhesion, again, because all these tiles are staying together. You've seen me test other tile array plates in the past, and a shot up here delaminates the whole array and it's falling apart down here. I measured those right around 170 thousandths thick. That's pretty darn thin. Normally in the past, our alumina's tiles are right around 220 thousandths to 1/4 of an inch. This is the front layer, 0.66 inches thick. We've got our Aramid Kevlar fiber as a laminating layer. And then we've got another piece of that low density foam again. Very, very impressive. One thing I will note is you didn't see a lot of fragmentation leave this plate, and that's a good thing. That's a big detraction against steel, is that the steel stops the bullet and spreads all the fragments out to the sides, and those can cut through your carriers and spell a bad day for your neck and appendages, at least in theory. So this laminating layer did a very good job at containing all of the bullets and ceramic pieces that came off of it. Very, very nicely built plate. Plate number 1, I think, saw a little more abuse because of the shots. These M855A1 shots down here were definitely not fair hits. I would like to see a little better performance against M855A1 and some M80A1 coverage at the velocity spec and above, but I think ultimately the thinner tiles is holding back its performance. But if you're looking for a lighter weight plate, this was sub 5 pounds and only a little over an inch thick. This may fit your mission very well for a 3+ plate. Well, folks, do you think the juice is worth the squeeze on this upgraded silicon carbide tile array plate from Militech in our RF2 category? I think if you're looking to shave a little bit more weight and you want that edge-to-edge protection, this plate is very viable over the previous generation Illumina version. Now, on the flip side, I think the Illumina version did a lot better at stopping our M855A1, although it did that because those tiles were quite a bit thicker, and generally speaking, in my experience, our Illumina tiles tend to stop threats better than our silicon carbide depending on that threat type. We were able to stop our M80 ball at above the specification and then some, as well as our 7N6M and even some of our 22 Creedmoor. Construction wise, I like the laminating layer that we have on the tiles. We got enough adhesive on there. We almost are all the way out to the complete edge of that plate, so that's always been a major complaint with import plates, is that they don't have complete edge-to-edge strike face. So Militech has gone ahead and had, you know, those tiles specially cut so they can engineer that to be a complete edge-to-edge plate. Our polyethylene is pressed and did a good job at containing all that energy. I'm not quite sure about the viability of that thinner foam on the back, but I do appreciate the laminating layer and the foam that they put on the front to protect those tiles from cracking. And overall, the amount of hits that we put on this plate, all those tiles that didn't get hit seemed to stay in place and didn't have any cracks propagate to them. With all that being said, it's time for me to get the heck out of here, but at the end of all my videos, I take a moment to thank all those who helped make these possible, because there's a lot that goes into this. Number one is my wife and son. They came out here today to help sort some more of my dad's belongings from his estate, as well as do yard work, and Deacon got to go shooting. He loves shooting, so any time that I can spend with them is greatly appreciated. Number two are my Patreon, Subscribe Star, and YouTube channel members. I have all that enabled, so if you're looking at giving back to the channel, I have a campsite in the description below. It's a landing page, and there's links to Brownells, Palmetto State Armory, Mira Safety, various other different discount codes in there that earn me a sales commission, and what I do with that is I put it right back in the channel. Each one of those shots of M855A1 is effectively $3 for me to procure, and that goes rather fast. Number three is Militech. Again, in full transparency, sent me those plates along with a few others to destroy with no strings attached. And of course, number four is you all for watching. Until next time, I'll catch you at the range.